Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Javier Becerra. I'm the Attorney General for the great state of California. I'm joined by our state leaders, the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, our President Pro Tem of the California State Senate, Kevin De Leon. I believe the governor, who is in Russia, has issued a statement as well on this matter. We're here because today the Trump administration, through Attorney General Sessions, pronounced that they would move forward to rescind the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, better known as DACA, which has provided a path out of the shadows for more than 800,000 young Americans who before this had to lead lives that were very difficult. And we're here to say, as leaders of our great state, where one of every 4 of those DACA recipients lives, that we are prepared to defend them. We are prepared to defend the DACA program because it is fully lawful. It is certainly fully American in its values and approach, and it has been tremendously successful for the economy of California and, quite honestly, for the economy of our nation. And so we want to send a very clear message to the Trump administration that we are ready to sue to defend the DACA program. We are prepared to go in tomorrow or when it seems appropriate to court to make sure we stand up for those who have stood up for and helped build this country, and certainly California. We believe the Trump administration has violated the Constitution and federal law, and certainly we believe wholeheartedly that the Trump administration has ignored the American people. 80% of Americans say that we should continue forward to allow the dreamers to come out of the shadows. And we understand the devastation that will occur, not just for the dreamers, but for the businesses that employ them today, who have spent countless dollars training and preparing these young people to be leaders in this country, in the business world, in the social settings. We also believe that it's not only bad for our economy, but it's a bad way to move forward on the president's own statement that he would deal with the dreamers with heart. Attorney General Sessions, I believe, mentioned the word compassion in his announcement. Compassion would have been to recognize that this has been a tremendously successful program for our economy and for these young people who are out there working and going to school, serving our country in uniform. It is not compassion to pull the rug from underneath them and tell them now they must go back into the shadows or live in limbo. We stand here today because we believe we're doing what is right. We believe we're doing what is American. And I think the 3 of us here can probably speak to having parents or grandparents, near relatives who were immigrants. And I can speak as the son of immigrants that this is not only the right thing to do, but it's what America has done for generations. And so, once again, we're called to stand up for people who build this country, who built California, who did things the right way. These are children who've come to this country. They are innocent of any violation of the law because they were brought here as minors, and they made the most of their experience as young Americans growing up, to the point of becoming valedictorians in their high schools, to graduating from some of the best universities in this nation, to working for some of the top businesses in America, to becoming the leaders who are willing to stand up and speak out, even though they have undocumented status. And so it is the least that we can do to stand up for them, since they are standing up for this country. With that, let me now ask the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, for his comments.
Thank you, Attorney General Becerra. I feel better knowing that you're the Attorney General for the great state of California, and thank you for bringing us together. My colleague once and colleague again, Senator De Leon. Let me pick up on something that the Attorney General mentioned, because it was the President himself who said repeatedly and recently that he would show great heart when it came to deciding DACA and how he would handle Dreamers. What we saw today is a decision that did not show great heart. It showed callousness and cowardliness. It shows that the words about showing great heart were empty and disingenuous. He didn't even have the courage to face the cameras himself. He didn't even have the courage to speak directly to the 800,000 Dreamers across the country whose lives are now facing a critical urgency. The decision is simply and morally wrong, because we know here in California that Dreamers and other immigrants have made our country great. They always have, and they always will. There's more than 800,000 DACA participants across the country, and 1 in 4 here in California, as Attorney General Becerra mentioned. And it's worth noting, I think, let's speak to precisely who we're talking about. It is not this illusion the president has about drug dealers and rapists. When we're talking about Dreamers, we're talking about young people who were brought to this country through no fault of their own. Those enrolled in DACA and benefiting from their protections are students. If they're not students, they're in the workforce. They're not just workers, many are business owners. And about 16% of them even own homes. They are productive members of our communities, contributing to society and contributing to our economy. These Dreamers have made California greater each and every day, as they make America greater each and every day. But with today's announcements, we see Donald Trump's values once again. It's not lost on me that about 10 days after the pardon of Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona, that Donald Trump now takes away the protections of DACA. If he really did care about Dreamers, he alone could save DACA, or at least keep it in place. He justifies this announcement, this decision, by suggesting that, well, now Congress has the opportunity, over the course of 6 months apparently, to fix our immigration system. He does not need to threaten and turn upside down the lives of Dreamers across the country to urge Congress to act. In fact, he can take the lead on Congress acting by embracing the bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform that our Attorney General helped negotiate when he was still in Congress, and that the United States Senate passed just a few years ago. Yet the House has chosen not to take it up since then. And I'm normally an optimist, but when I look at a United States House of Representatives with a Republican majority where the supposed Freedom Caucus exerts way too much influence and power, or I look at a United States Senate, again with the Republican majority, but where one member can hold an item and it takes 60 votes to get something done, I'm not as optimistic as I normally am. But I do know that in the meantime, California will stand with Dreamers, and California will continue to fight, whether it's through litigation, whether it's through legislation, or whether it's through activism and advocacy. Because if Congress does take up the challenge of either legislating DACA or a more comprehensive immigration reform package, there's no more important voice in that discussion, in that debate, than the most populous state in the nation, the most diverse state in the nation, the home to more immigrants and Dreamers than any state in the nation, and that's the great state of California. In the meantime, we will continue to work and insist on the humane treatment of Dreamers and all immigrants. We will continue to insist on justice for Dreamers. And my final 2 messages are this. For Dreamers watching at home, we got your back. And we will work together and use everything in our powers to protect you. And lastly, to congressional leaders, both Republican and Democrat, who have spoken for years about the need for a legislative fix to DACA, now is the time to act. with real hearts. Thank you.
Our Senate President Pro Tem, Kevin De Leon.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Attorney General Javier Becerra, and thank you very much for what you do representing all of us in the great state of California. I also want to recognize and thank our Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and thank you very much for your very powerful and poignant words. I want to give a very special recognition as well to a visitor from the great state of Hawaii, who is the leader. He is the president of the Senate of the state of Hawaii. He's been in conversations himself with his Attorney General, Attorney General Doug Chin, as well as with our Attorney General of California, Javier Becerra. I want to thank you, too, for also expressing your solidarity to the DACA students, not just in Hawaii, but in California and throughout the great nation. That is State Senator Ron Cucci. The Attorney General, Javier Becerra, Alex Padilla, our Secretary of State, and I share something in common. We're all children of immigrants. As the youngest child of a single immigrant mother with a third-grade education, the actions today more than horrify me. America should not be a place where dreams come to die. This great nation was built on the dreams of immigrants who came here looking for a better way of life, and in doing so, enriched us all. Yet today's action by President Trump and his advisors, chiefly the Attorney General of the Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, and Steve Miller, to eliminate DACA proves that playing to his base is a greater priority than the future of his country, of this country, and preserving the values that has made our nation the greatest in the world. But what they don't realize is that the more they cater to their dwindling base, the more isolated they will become. With his decision to end DACA, Trump has snuffed out a beacon of hope for nearly 800,000 undocumented young men and women, dreamers who were brought to this country as children but have grown to embrace the American dream as their own. Their undocumented status can be laid out at the doorstep of Congress, who has failed for years to pass immigration reform. And because of this failure, these young adults have had to live in constant fear that they could lose their homes, their families, and their accomplishments at any time. President Obama's DACA program of 2012 allowed them to come out from the cloud of possible deportation to pursue an education, a career. They've been able to earn high school and college diplomas, open bank accounts, buy cars, own a mortgage, contribute to their economies and to their communities. The hundreds of thousands of dreamers who call California home represent a bright future for our state. They, along with their parents, have helped make our state's economy the sixth largest in the world. But Donald Trump wants to push those bright young minds back into the shadows, and in doing so, endangers California's economy. Trump's decision to terminate DACA is meek acquiescence to the United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Chief Immigration Advisor Steve Miller. Their fierce opposition to DACA and their nationalist views are very well documented. Today's action undoubtedly proves that President Trump and his advisors are nothing but cruel, compassionless men. While Trump said in April that DACA recipients could, quote, rest easy, he has proven once again that his word is worthless, that any of us concerned about the future of our country should never rest until he's out of the White House. As our Attorney General, Javier Becerra, as well as our Secretary of State, Alex Padilla just mentioned, it is now up to Congress to restore the hope Trump has smothered and pass permanent protections so dreamers can live, flourish, and pursue the American dream as legal residents. I've been encouraged by congressional Republicans standing up and saying they will act because they understand the values that these young Americans provide to our country. But here in California, we will work in the coming weeks to ensure DACA students can continue to earn income to support their educational dreams. Finally, I want to say we're not going to allow one executive decision by the president to reverse generations of progress. At the height of our historic diversity, our economic output, and our sense of global responsibility. Now, more than ever, it is vital that California remain America's exceptional example, a beacon of hope and opportunity in a very uncertain world, but especially in a very uncertain nation due to the actions of today. Thank you.
I thank the President Pro Tem of the Senate and the Secretary of State for joining with us. I thank also Governor Brown, who has issued a statement supporting the efforts of the state of California to stand up for all the dreamers in America today, and certainly in our state of California, who fear that all their good effort was for naught.